Stories help us to understand the world around us. They allow us to laugh, they allow us to cry, they give us the ability to feel and provide us with an outlet to heal. Join me as I get to know some of the amazing people behind the stories that we read in order to truly discover the story that has been hidden within each of us. My name is Bre Smith, and this is the Author Push Talk Show. Welcome to the Author Push Talk Show. I am your host, Bre Smith, and today we have a powerful young woman who will be talking to us about women empowerment. Welcome to the show, Jasmine Tilman. Thank you, Jasmine, for being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So can you tell us who Jasmine Tilman is?
Yes, so I'm a self-published author, of course, a life coach, a life purpose coach, actually, and a motivational speaker. I'm from Toledo, Ohio, and I'm just, a young girl trying to find her way.
Amen. I know today we're talking about your devotional journal, Get a Grip, Will Ya? And I had the pleasure of just reading a little bit of it. I haven't finished it yet, but from what I read, it was incredibly powerful in Women Empowerment Journal. So can you tell us just a little bit more about your journal, your devotional journal you wrote for women?
Yeah, so when I wrote my journal, this was a dedication to ladies because when I first was looking for what I wanted to be in life coaching field, before I even figure out what the name, I wanted to be a life coach. I just knew counselor or someone that wanted to help people. And I was going to start off with women, but I really like, helping everyone. So I dedicated this journal to women and women finding their way, and also just looking at it through my eyes, seeing the things that I've went through and overcame being a young woman that I am. And I wanted to apply that to others' lives so they can also see that we can get over, we can do this, we can push mountains if we allowed ourselves to. And this is the one thing that I wanted to really stretch in my journal.
Amen. So like dive a little bit into like the different type of things you talked about. I know you had talked about your father and him being in jail. You also had talked about in the book even struggling with some identity issues, like wanting to fit in and trying to please other people, even relationships. Can you dive a little bit into those?
Yes. Yes. So with my father, my father figure was my grandfather. He passed 2/22/13. That's how I remember it straight off. But February 22nd, 2013. And this was a struggle with me because also had my brother figure, which was my cousin. So it was just it was a struggle because because my cousin, he went to prison at a young age and my grandfather passed. So, my father was in and out of the justice system for a long time. And, because he had us when we were children, but it was hazy, I was a child. So growing up in teenage years, he wasn't around, I believe he was probably going through an identity thing himself, and he wasn't around, and it really took a toll on me. So it caused me to go out and look for that love that I didn't receive from him, and that same love that I had from my grandfather before he went, passed with God, and my cousin, So it's like I was lost, for a very long time. And it's like I erased my entire past life. I didn't want to talk about it, I didn't want to think about it. But this was another thing that was stopping me from reaching my true potential because I was trying to avoid these things instead of indulging in them and getting over them and owning them because we're all human. And these are things that I really learned, coming up and growing up and paying attention to my elders, paying attention to them and understanding that the reasons why they have these traumas and they pass them down on us, the other generation. So that's my main goal, is trying to wipe the next generation of children and teens and even adults, from the past generation, to really see that we can do this and we can be positive. It's all up to us. So that's one of the huge things, I struggled with for a long time was with my ex. They say that teen years with the relationships, they not really, oh, that's just, and I understand that, but this person, this is what's making us who we are, like this is molding us as we're finding ourselves in our teenage years. That's when we love the hardest. Well, in my opinion, that's when I love the hardest. So that's, I just wanted to breach all of those things and, just really, I, I gave it all. I gave it my all, and I wasn't ashamed of anything that I went through anymore. And I was just wanted to shine my light.
Hey man, like you touched on a lot of good points, and I want to come back to that shame point in a little bit. But I want to also talk about the daddy figure, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of times, especially as Black women, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
one of two things. You are blessed if you have a father and he's a great father that's in the home.
Yes.
But then there's also too, like if you grew up in like impoverished situations, we call it the
Mm-hmm.
hood, what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Either father could have been, in and out of jail, or your father
Mm-hmm.
could have been, running the streets, or your father could have been, abusive. And for me, I know growing up, my father, even though he was present, but he was abusive. You know what I mean? Because he suffered from alcoholism and things like that. And so I know that really played a lot into my identity, because I remember it was like one time my dad had really literally told me he had wished he flushed me down the toilet. And that kind of stuck with me as a child. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, wow, if your own father don't love you, who else is going to love you? And so I'm sitting there trying to run out and find love everywhere, from friends, from relationships, didn't even care with who, right? I didn't care.
Exactly.
I wanted to be loved, right? I wanted to
Right.
be so much. And so I commend you for even talking about that, because I think a lot of times we want our fathers, right?
Yes, exactly.
A relationship with our fathers, or even have a father figure that's in our life that's
Right.
that can really speak to us, you know what I mean, and help mold us. But
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
It goes for Black males as well, but I just know as females, like that's the first man that you love. And so if you see that, whatever you see, that's the type of man that you're eventually, you're going to get with, the first guy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I've been in relationships with people and they were abusive. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
that's what I saw. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that's what I needed. You know
Right.
what I mean? I wanted.
Exactly.
Just, you know what I mean? That's what she saw. So yeah, that was so powerful. But I also want to talk about the shame piece, because growing up, people do feel shame. You know what I mean? Especially growing up, you be like, man, because I'm not gonna lie, I was ashamed a lot of my past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kid. But now I'm like, you know what? Like you said, I'm all about helping the next generation not to have to make those same mistakes. You know what I mean? And so I
Mm-hmm.
commend you on that as well. Um, what advice can you give, even like women and young women who are going through, what we just talked about, like either
Yeah.
relationship issues with their fathers, or even they're in bad relationships currently. You know what I mean? Because they feel like, hey, this is it. I want love so bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Never experienced it. Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. So I want to say I'm huge on that because it was for 6, 7 years I was in a relationship and it was toxic because we both didn't know who we were and we were both finding ourselves. But it was just with me, I have the ability to give myself off even when I'm struggling within. Some people just shut down or cut you off, and I had that. So it was just like, this guy knew that I was always going to be there. So it's like you have to be for yourself. You cannot allow people to degrade you from any aspect of your life. You have to really see who you are. You have to look within and get that inner child and mold and mend that inner child trauma that you're facing. but you cannot do any of that without first admitting to it, taking ownership for your responsibility, and then we can talk, But it's just you have to love yourself first, and people don't know how to do that. So you have to figure out the how, and when you do that by figuring out your why, your purpose. What is the things that you go to sleep thinking about and you cannot just live without? This is one of the main things that I ask, what is that one thing that you feel like you cannot leave this earth without completing? And this is really a gateway to figuring out who you are, because and so I love that we're speaking about relationships. This has got me because my ex is just like my father, and he was in and out of the system. And I don't know if it made me hold on tighter, because my cousin, when I was telling you about my cousin, gave me that love when he went, to jail at a young age, and it just made me stronger. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, that is powerful, like I said. And I love when you're talking about loving yourself, because that's what it is, And in the scriptures it talks about you love thy God with all your heart and soul and love thy neighbor as thyself, but you can't love thy neighbor until you learn to love yourself, right? And we know that God is love, but it's that process of learning to love truly. What does loving yourself look like? Is it doing self-care? Is it getting therapy? You know what I mean? Is it your health, focusing on your health? Like what does it look like to you, right? Because it can come in
Exactly.
forms, you know. Um, and I think it's okay too as people, because I think sometimes we think like God created us all to be people of connection. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes us as people, we get scared to be connected, but it's okay to need people. You know what I mean? I just think we have to be conscious and cognizant of the people that we allow into our circles, into our personal space. You know what I mean? It's all about boundaries too, just setting boundaries for ourselves. Um, is there any advice or tips that you could give women or anything like that about setting boundaries for themselves to ensure, it's like guarding your heart, protecting yourself, so that, if you get in these situations, I don't care if it's, if it's with your father, you know what I mean? Because you may have to have a boundary with him, or, if it's somebody you're dating, or, any type of relationship, friend relationship. Are there any boundaries that you set for yourself?
Absolutely. And this is huge because yesterday it was my cousin's birthday, and I went over, to the house. They haven't seen me in months because first things is first. I'm protecting my energy. I was not the person that wanted to, kick it anymore, and, just get loose and things like that. I was really, it was time to start getting on my business, and really, like I said, finding who I am, mending that inner child. So the thing that I did was I cut the people off that I found that didn't need to get any more of my energy. And people say, "Oh, you want to be all alone, you isolate yourself." No, right now I'm discovering myself and who I am, who I want to be, who I need to be, and who I can help others continue to thrive in their true potential and succeed in their goals. And after that, once that I get in that room with surrounded by a bunch of like-minded individuals, I'm going to be holy. I'm not going to feel less confident in myself. And I want to know, what did you do to get here? How can I get this successful? And we could uplift each other.
Yes, I love that. I love that. You just said a whole word. I love it. I love it. No, for real, because like I said, you can have boundaries, or like I said, you can cut people completely out of your life, and it is okay, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of times, sometimes we get scared because you're like, oh man, that's my homie. We've been down for since we was kids, or man, that's my family. You know what I mean? Like, how do you just cut off family? But if they're dragging you down, why have them in your life? You know what I mean? You don't want, like, God gave you one life. You can't redo it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You got to protect yourself at all costs. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I commend you for that.
Oh,
I truly do. I truly, truly do.
Thank you.
And then too, I love how you talked about being in new environments. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times too, that's our problem. I think we get so scared to take a risk. You know, and life's about risk. Like you got to be willing to go out there and discover new things about yourself. You can't keep doing the same old, and thinking that you're gonna get a different result, because it's not gonna happen. You gotta constantly growing. You gotta constantly be evolving. And so I find that to be very powerful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So how did you accept your father back into your life after you got used to your grandfather being there for you?
Oh, yes. So it was like, it's like I'm just a, oh, come here, type of person. Like I'm a, okay, you did this and you're human. We can get over that. So it was just like, but it was still things that I was dealing with that, because my other brothers, they weren't around. I have about 4 or 5 brothers. And, I let them know how I felt instead of me holding it in. I'm an introvert. So it's like, I'm just okay. Like, okay, you can, but I let them know, I let him know, them, like every man in my life, I let them know the things that, I was facing as a child, coming up and alone, and I, going through this toxic relationship for so long and putting up with it because I would crave that love so deeply and dearly. And, once we really got in tune with each other, and because he's always been I'm going to say listener. He's a great listener. My father is a great listener. He's always happy for me. If I get news right now, he's gonna be the first person I call and tell. So it's like, we just kind of I don't know if more Black families or do it, but we don't really talk about our problems. We just like, oh, hand me the remote or something, like after an argument or something, like and it's like, okay, I know she's not mad at me, or she's talking to me. So yeah, it's kind of like that.
Amen. I love that. And that's and I love that because that's what I wish me and my father had. I mean, me and my father have a better relationship now. Of course,
Okay.
we're in place because we have to both protect ourselves. But I love that you're able to still be able to talk to him and converse even after all these years. You know what I mean? Like that's true forgiveness. You know what I mean? To truly be able to do that and not hold all that in and be like, you did to me when I was a kid, you wasn't even there. You know what I mean? Like you just like, hey, the past is the past and I'm gonna move forward in my life. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. So how long have you been writing? Is this something that you started or have you did this since you were a kid?
Since a child, I've been writing. I love writing. And since my mother always tells me a little story about when I was a kid and I was in school, I believe, I don't want to say it wrong, but I think it's about kindergarten or one of those grades, one of those young grades. And the teacher told us to write a sentence. I wrote a paragraph. And I kind of remember that. And she was amazed because I can barely spell.
I mean, that's powerful though. I feel like a lot of us, when it comes to our passions, like if we really look back in our childhood, we can kind of see where the Lord was leading us all along. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because I was a big writer. I love to write, and I felt like that was the best way to express myself, especially as a kid. I didn't know how to else. I couldn't. I felt like I didn't have a voice, and so writing just really became my outlet.
Yes.
I commend you for that. I truly do.
Thank you.
So is there anybody you want to shout out or any contributors you want to shout out from writing your book?
Sure, yes. Oh, yes. I want to shout out C. Renee. She really led me and guided me through everything. She has her coaching business. Also want to shout out my editor. She is so amazing. Zambia Geiger. She is so great. And, and I want to shout out my fans and my community for supporting me like no other. And I love it. I'm getting tongue tied because it makes me so emotional every day how much support, that because I deleted my old Facebook and made a whole entirely new Facebook with a lot of individuals that think like me, and it's always positivity on my timeline. And that's one thing that I really love. So thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for coming on the show today. I would love for you to come back in the future and talk about your other works that you're creating. So,
Absolutely.
and thank you so much. And as always, guys, thank you for watching the Author Push Talk Show. It's a pleasure. My name is Bre Smith. Until next time, I'll see you later.